with this new reporting about how explicitly the Trump administration's actions are helping billionaires tied to Vladimir Putin. New York Times reporting late today on a deal to weaken sanctions on a Putin-linked oligarch is actually far worse than everyone thought. And as you may remember, a lot of people in the Congress thought it was terrible. The secret document shows that the deal would actually free this Putin oligarch from hundreds of millions of dollars of debt and give him and apparently his allies more control to important parts of his company. Now, instead of punishing this oligarch, the Trump administration is essentially, according to this new material, helping him. Meanwhile, the Russian at the center of the Mueller probe, pop star Emma Agalarov, who of course worked with Don Jr. on the Trump Tower meeting, this is new and interesting. He says he's canceling a planned trip to the U.S. because of Bob Mueller.
Due to circumstances beyond my control, I'm forced to postpone my scheduled U.S. and Canadian tour. Basically, I've been put in this position against my will.
Agalarov's lawyer, I should say, telling NBC this is most definitely linked to the Russia probe because while they're happy to speak to Mueller's team, what they don't want is to be subpoenaed or held under a material witness warrant. So a lot of moving parts there. And then you have Rudy Giuliani doing something we've reported on before, the Giuliani dance. He is now apparently trying to backpedal from comments he made this weekend that appeared to suggest, as a factual matter, that Rudy wanted the world to know Trump was involved in talks for Trump Tower Moscow right through the election.
Well, it's our understanding that they went on throughout 2016. Weren't a lot of them, but there were conversations. Can't be sure of the exact dates, but the president can remember having conversations with him about it.
Throughout 2016?
The president also remembered. Yeah, probably could be up to as far as October, November. Our answers cover until the election.
Talks of Trump Tower Moscow went as late as October or November of 2016, even in some form.
Could be.
Yeah, could be. So that's either a huge deal. A lot of papers treated it as such. He is the president's lawyer. Big article in the New York Times. Giuliani appearing to admit that, saying Trump told the Moscow folks that these discussions would go from the day he announced the run for president to the day he won. There's the Times story. So then you get the 180. Trump, of course, had repeatedly claimed throughout 2016, nothing to do with Russia, no deals in the works. So if you stop there, that's already problematic for them. Then you have, as I mentioned, what we call the Giuliani, because late today, right in our newsroom, here we go again. Let me read to you. Rudy Giuliani saying the statement on Trump and Cohen's discussions were hypothetical, not based on conversations he had with the president, did not represent the actual timing or circumstances of any such discussions. We have a lot in the program, as I mentioned. We begin appropriately with attorney Maya Wiley, a former counsel to the mayor of New York City and a civil prosecutor in the Southern District, which prosecuted Michael Cohen, and former federal prosecutor John Flannery. I often start with Maya because I like her a little bit more than you, even though I like you both. But the reason I want to start with you, John, is you have given a very strong view of Rudy Giuliani's lawyering. And this isn't the only thing we're going to discuss in this block, but we start here with, again, the dance and the walk back. What do you think is actually going down?
Well, it's the Rudy stare and two-step. And, you know, we have a precedent for how this is going down currently. Remember when we had the September 2016 meeting with Cohen and Trump discussing the payoff for the ladies, if you will. And first of all, both Trump and Rudy were on the same page, and they said, oh, yeah, we just structured the deal. People do it all the time. Rudy lost his job at his firm. Then they did the 180, and they said, no, 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 none of that happened. And it turned out, because of tapes and other things, that they had, in fact, done it. I think the way to read Rudy is take the admissions for what they are and rely on those, and don't rely on the withdrawal.
That's the whole problem. I mean, you don't have to be a lawyer. You're sitting at home on Sunday, you're watching Meet the Press, Chuck Todd, doing a great interview, and you have the admission of conversations up to Election Day, and then tonight you have a lawyer being a lawyer and saying, well, I was reserving the prospect that could have happened, but I wasn't making a factual assertion. So I ask you, lawyer to lawyer, which is it?
Well, I think that this is the way I think you look at it. You look at what Cohen said back at the time of the plea, and you see the groundwork to say that we have the Trump project, the tower, if you will, in Moscow, and his testimony before the Senate, and that he was regularizing it to fit what Trump wanted. Now you have these admissions that take it further. So what is the story? Well, on February the 7th, if Cohen goes up to the Hill, that would be the questions, if he's allowed to talk about anything that happened offshore. And that's where we stand, I believe. So as an investigator, you'd want to... You also have to ask, is Rudy waiving privilege, as he did back with the tape recording, by disclosing what his client's position is?
Well, that's also odd. Well, let me bring in Maya, because now we're 5 minutes into the show, and I'm still a little confused. I like to keep it real and be honest. I'm confused. I'm going to show, this is the last Rudy bite I'm going to show, but here's a sound bite of Rudy on CNN also this weekend. Take a look.
As far as I know, President Trump did not have discussions with him, certainly had no discussions with him in which he told him or counseled him to lie. Obviously, you have a hatred for the president.
But you just acknowledged that it's possible that President Trump talked to Michael Cohen about his testimony.
Which would be perfectly normal.
But you just acknowledged that President Trump might have talked to him about his testimony.
And so what if he talked to him
about it? Not
dealer's choice. I mean, all of this.
Well, first of all, I really expected a rap lyric for this one, Ari. So I just want to say I'm a little disappointed.
You're disappointed. Well,
I'm a little
it's
disappointed.
not over yet.
Here's the thing. If you're using music or poetry to understand the world around you, that presupposes you've come to an understanding. And I am being real with the audience and everyone here. I am not sure whether we're witnessing Rudy Giuliani messing up, or what I think John was getting at, which is if it was like what he did on Hannity, then he was parceling it out. And it matters. This is not theater. This is not entertainment. It matters what the criminal defense attorney for a president under criminal investigation who has a new attorney general coming in to deal with the Bob Mueller probe and a lot of other stuff that went down on Friday. It matters which thing Rudy's doing.
He could be doing both, because he could be doing the latter badly. Because if you listen to what Rudy Giuliani said to the New York Times, he essentially made himself a fact witness, because he said the president told me that he was having discussions from beginning to end. Those are also inconsistent with some of the statements that he was making Sunday. So he's made inconsistent statements. He suggested that he's had conversations that you could argue make it difficult for him to preserve attorney-client privilege, at least on those conversations. Now, I'm not saying we know that for a fact or that the Mueller team would do that, because that would obviously be a big eruption. I'm just saying it's so sloppy, it's so poorly done, doesn't mean it won't be effective from the spin management stuff.
And because Donald Trump has already given written answers to Mueller, wouldn't any competent lawyer know what the time frame was, whether it was Election Day or October or earlier? Why not stick to the story that was given to Mueller?
Well, exactly, because remember, he also makes clear he knows that those answers, he talks about those as answers to the Mueller questions in terms of the time frame. So the fact that he's all over the map suggests, I do believe he was trying to do spin control, and that some of that spin control was trying to inoculate what was going to happen on February 7th. He spent most of his time trying to say Cohen is a liar. Well, Cohen has lied. The difference between a Rudy Giuliani and a Michael Cohen is Michael Cohen has admitted it.
Right. and being a lawyer for Donald Trump carries with it those risks. Both of you stay with me. We're about to bring in another guest and look to some of the politics. The comments here about Trump Tower Moscow directly contradict, as we've been discussing, what Donald Trump had said throughout the campaign: no deals with Russia.
I have nothing to do with Russia. I have nothing to do with Russia. And even for anything, what do I have to do with Russia?
I have nothing to do with Russia, folks, okay? I promise you I don't have any deals with Russia.
Giuliani, though, this weekend saying quite clearly Trump was working on this deal with the Russians, and Democrats got interested.
That is news to me, and that is big news. Knowing that the Republican nominee was actively trying to do business in Moscow, that the Republican nominee, at least at one point, had offered, if he built this building, Vladimir Putin, a free penthouse apartment. And if those negotiations were ongoing while up till the election, I think that's a relevant fact for voters to know.
Jason Johnson joins the discussion, politics editor for The Root. Good day to you, sir.
Good to hear the speech as well.
Let's start with where Congress fits in, and I want to read to you the other reporting here. If you put aside all of the lawyers and just go to American interests. Reading from this Times report, the way they've negotiated, the Trump administration, this deal for this billionaire could lend ammunition to criticism. They let a Kremlin-allied oligarch off easy, the Times writes tonight, or they were outmaneuvered by a sophisticated legal and lobbying campaign funded by his companies. Certainly the latter has happened in Washington before when you're dealing with rich people.
Right.
What does it tell you that here we are learning more about the way the Trump administration is letting off this Putin oligarch? And Congress, to be clear, has a majority in both houses that wants to stop this. It's only that there are enough Republicans to filibuster it that it wasn't stopped yet.
Right. Well, the larger question that we have here now, Ari, is we can no longer say that there is no connection between the President of the United States and Russia. There are too many people involved. You've got his son meeting in Trump Tower with Russian representatives. You have this sort of deal with an oligarch. You have Manafort handing polling information. You have Rudy Giuliani saying that he was still conducting deals at this point. So the question for Congress, certainly on the Democratic side in the House, is not whether or not Trump is corrected to Russia anymore. It's what direction these connections are going and whether or not they rise to the level of impeachment. And the way, and I have to mention this because this is the legal part and the political part. Every single time Rudy Giuliani goes into the air, every time he says something wrong, every time he walks back, the guy's got more step backs than James Harden. It's ridiculous. Every single time he says something, he gives more fuel to Democrats to go to their constituents and say, see, this is an issue we should be focused on. Because the thing that the Trump administration wants is they want Democrats to not want to go near impeachment. They want it to be politically poisonous or dangerous. But whenever Giuliani speaks and whenever Trump makes these kinds of deals and when they're revealed, it makes it a winner for Democrats running for president in 2020 or even just the Congress now.
And do you think, again, on the legislative side of it, which involves politics, do you think the Democrats are hitting the sanctions stuff enough? We all get why the more complex it becomes, the harder it becomes. But when you have several Republican senators, I believe a count of 11, joining the Democrats to say, don't let this Putin guy off the hook, that seems pretty clear.
Yeah, it seems pretty clear, but also it speaks to what is going to happen down the road. If you've got 11 Republicans who are already broken, what happens when the Mueller report comes out, if the entire report comes out? You're going to have more people added to that group of 11. You're going to have more people who say, not only should we not let this guy off on sanctions, maybe we should increase the number of sanctions. And that cage, when it gets rattled, is just going to make things more and more difficult for the president. Look, I think at this point, you've got Republicans, not just the Republicans who are like, hey, I'm going to state that Hillary Clinton won, or I had a rough race last time. You're going to have Republicans saying, I don't want this dragging me down in 2020. And that's what the president has to worry about.
John?
Well, you know, I think we give too much patience to whether or not we should be calling foul. I mean, Trump has shown himself to be Putin's tool, his lackey. We see it when he peers with him. We see all the things that squeeze him, all the different lies he's told, 100 contacts and so forth. And I got a little concerned when Rosenstein had a conversation, apparently, with the special counsel's office about how to handle the BuzzFeed article, when there are elements in the public domain that show us that that direction does make sense, although we don't know now.
I'm almost out of time, but why would that concern you? The Deputy Attorney General is overseeing the probe. It appears, according to Mueller's spokesperson, that something was stated about what Mueller has that they want the world to know they thought was mischaracterized or inaccurate. What's wrong with that?
Well, where do you draw the line? It's either an investigation and it's kept secret. And this was the error, in my opinion, of Comey with Hillary Clinton. He shouldn't have been talking about some of those things, putting aside.
But when Comey did that, it's not like
it
had any other negative impacts.
Well, if some say on the election it did. You're setting me up.
I winked at you through the camera. I don't know if you could see it or not.
No, I can't see it because this camera's just a little black round thing in front of me.
I should say, Maya, the Comey thing, it worked out fine.
Yes, I would direct everyone to all the polling to show the impact of Comey's decision. Yes. Can we just wait? Just one thing I want to make sure we don't lose here, because the Emin Agalarov thing is actually a big deal. And the reason it's a big deal is because in a Forbes magazine interview in 2017, what Emin Agalarov said is, I still talk to Donald Trump. We still have family relationships, and he takes care of his friends. And when you think about him refusing to come and not wanting to submit himself to these conversations, you have to wonder what the following of the money is going to look like. And remember, VT Bank, that's the bank that if we want to get into the Deripaska, who, by the way, was owed money by Paul Manafort, Deripaska, part of the reason this is a sweetheart deal for him is because he gets to get rid of debt by giving stocks to VT Bank. That is one of the banks that Michael Cohen was going to look to for financing for the tower. Well,
and that's the point that the Trump administration has turned this into a deal that potentially seems, according to the New York Times, to benefit that person. Maya, you wanted a reference. How about please don't throw me in the sanctions briar patch? Because
that's not rap. That's not rap.
It doesn't have to be rap.
Kanye, okay. Come on, Kanye.
Please don't throw me in the briar patch. These sanctions. These sanctions netted me, from a business perspective, 200 M's. Not bad. I got to fit a break. Maya, John, and Jason, thank you for a lively panel.
Thanks for watching. To see more videos, click right here, and subscribe.